Welcome everyone to our fourth webinar between Lakom and Spazio Italia in Kuwait. We are very happy to be bringing these webinars to women and men all around in Kuwait and in Italy. Today we have stress management. This is a very important topic for everyone, as today I think our number one problem is stress. So without further ado, we have today with us Beatrice Ligorio. She is a full professor in educational psychology, the dean of a 3-year degree course in psychological sciences and techniques, vice president of the Inter-University Collaborative Knowledge Building Group. She has coordinated the National Division of Developmental and Educational Psychology. She is the main editor of a journal called QWERTY and obviously had many, many publications in many journals. So welcome, Beatrice, to our fourth webinar. Can you tell us more about you other than this very impressive resume?
About myself?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Southern Italian woman. And yeah, interested in, I'm a psychologist interested in education in particular. And I'm also recently got interested in women's study, gender study, and in particular stress work and the use of technology in the workplace. So this is my main thing. I don't know what else. Well, that could be interesting to know by myself. I don't know.
Yes, and we'll find out more during this discussion.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here, and I really hope that this is going to be like a first step for more intense collaboration. Yeah, why not? Maybe more exchange, more encounters, more meetings. Why not?
That sounds great. Thank you. And we also have Rita El-Haddad, who is an assistant professor of psychology and assistant director of the Center for Teaching Excellence at the American University of Kuwait. It's actually the university that I graduated from. She has a PhD in psychology from the Graduate Center from New York. She primarily conducts research on dyslexia and is very involved in research on autism, learning in university students, and behavioral neuroscience. Welcome, Rita, to our webinar. Can you please tell us more about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So I am Lebanese. This is my 5th year in Kuwait, so I'm happy to be here. I used to work at a school, and now, as you know, I'm at the American University of Kuwait. And yes, stress management, I agree with Beatrice. It's a very important topic, and I'm happy to be discussing it with everyone today.
Amazing. So let us get started discussing that, because I know we're probably gonna, finish time and not finish the subject. I think the most important thing for us today is to identify what stress is, because unfortunately with the standards that we have put for ourselves, we do not realize that even small things like the ping of a notification on a phone is stressful. So what if we could define what normal and abnormal stress is? Beatrice, what do you think that would be?
It's it's not that easy. I mean, to distinguish, to define what stressful is, because sometimes we like it to be stressed. It's a sort of a push that makes us doing things that we normally wouldn't do it, and it's a double side. It's a twofold feeling sensation, because in one hand we feel this is too much, is taking more time than I thought, that I planned, and it's challenging me. And at the same time, the feeling of being challenged, of having a next step, and to see yourself in a situation where you, at the end, will be able to handle the situation. It's something that we like it, that it triggers, that gives us a motivation to do more. So the more, sometimes more, the more we are stressed, the more we search for stressing. You know, it's there is a psychological phenomena called sensation seeking. Now that it's can be that it's some psychologists related also to the stress related work, that is this need to look for more, to be constantly challenged, to be constantly under pressure, which gives us the energy to do it, because otherwise we will, you know, lie down or lay back, or, you know, do less. So it's not that easy. I mean, it doesn't depend necessarily on the personality, but it depends also on many contextual factors. It depends on the situation, depends on the other people we have around, depends on the task, depends on the support that we have, depends on the what we associate with that stress. One thing that I got interested is lately is how emotional intelligence can help in handling stress, and how this may vary depending on women and men. And yeah, I don't know if you send around the question that I organized in advance, that I proposed in advance. I don't know if you send it around. One question was, you know, if you think that women there is a difference, or
yes, Beatrice, we did. The participants received
so
in the yes. No,
I'm curious to know if the people answer, and the people, those that have answered, if they have this feeling that, you know, women are more sensitive and therefore more intelligent emotionally, which is, you know, more popular way of thinking. You know, that women are more sensitive. If you look at the definition of emotional intelligence, there is this temptation to think that women are more, you know, they have more skill in that sense. There are many. Actually, I prepared a few slides. I don't know if it's
sure, you
it's
can
a good
share.
idea to show it. Okay. Just to have a handy. Where are they? Let me see. Usually technology, when you need it, doesn't work, huh?
Technology could be stressful too.
it is.
Let me see. Let me see if I manage. Can you see? No, this is the wrong one. Sorry. Wrong smile. Okay, forget it about it. I will go just without slides. So the recent definition of emotional intelligence distinguish many factors. And if you see some of these factors, then you realize that some of them, they seems to be like female. For example, social awareness, no, the ability to take in consideration what the other are feeling, what the other might think, and how we impact the other's feelings, no, seems to be something that is more related to women. Or, for example, the ability to use that emotion to think, to solve problems, and not to use only cognitive resources, but also to use the emotion, the feelings, to solve also cognitive problems. Or, for example, well, you know, there's a big difference, the main differences between interpersonal competencies and intrapersonal competencies. So the ability to know yourself better, to relate with your own feelings, you know, it seems to be like in the popular representation, seems to be things that women are more able to do it. So when you look at the stress work, at the work caused by the stress caused by work, by an overload of work or stressful deadlines or any reason, you might think that those abilities are offering better opportunity for women. But actually it's not this way. One of the most interesting results that I learned studying emotional intelligence is that emotional intelligence is not gender-based. it's
Interesting.
it varies a lot. For example, this would be interesting to show because I prepared. Let me try again because I prepared a table. So let me see. Sure.
It's just while you find that, do you mind if I just go to Rita and just check what she thinks about that?
Okay.
Sure. So I completely agree with Beatrice in terms of stress. It's not all bad. So when we talk about stress, when we commonly hear the word stress, we're usually referring to distress, so bad stress. But there's also the positive type of stress, which is actually called eustress, so EU stress. And eustress is, like Patricia says, if you're getting married and you're excited, it could be stressful, but you work towards it. You're happy to do it. You're finishing your degree. So these are things that are pushing you. And that could be something positive. So stress is just the response your body has to some sort of demand, right? Now, when can stress be a problem is when it's long term, right? So if you're excited, you're getting married, you get married, it's done. The wedding preparation is done. This stress should be over. When it becomes a problem is when it is long term. It can affect you very negatively in the long term. You can have headaches, difficulty sleeping, you can have a lot of tension. It can cause anxiety. You can be very irritable or angry. So you can have these different physical and emotional symptoms. So when stress becomes a problem is when it's becoming kind of long-term and sort of never ending. This is when it's an issue.
Okay, so do you feel that reaches the level from stress and then it goes into burnout? Because you're not able to manage any kind of stress if you reach that certain level. It all becomes bad stress.
Yeah, it could definitely lead to burnout, but illnesses, right? You're more likely to get sick when you're stressed. You're less patient. So if you have a family, you're going to be, losing your temper more often. Absolutely. And so part of this, sorry, just adjusting my microphone. And so part of this is, as Beatrice was mentioning, when we think about emotional intelligence, part of it is understanding our emotions, managing our emotions, which is important to keep in mind when we are stressed. What does our body do? So if you think about that right now, so I would ask to the participants, if you wanted to type in the chat, when you're stressed, what do you notice happens to how much you're sweating or to your heart rate or things like that? What happens to your body? Does your stomach get tight? If you wanted to share some of that, because when you notice when you're stressed, when you see your body reacting, you can take steps to de-escalate, because sometimes we're so stressed out, we don't even realize we're stressed out anymore because that becomes the norm. Like we feel sick all the time, your stomach's hurting all the time, that we don't notice it. So it's actually good to notice when we're not stressed versus stressed so that we can pinpoint and then manage better.
Okay. Beatrice, I want to go back to a point you said, which is that it's not gender biased, but I tend to feel that women usually are more stressed just because of the tasks, the roles they have to fulfill, being mothers sometimes, or even caretakers, because usually they're the women. I'm not saying men don't do that too, but the tolerance that we have for these situations usually is higher, but also the stress that comes with it is higher. Would you agree?
Well, you know what I did? I prepared. I was trying to show it before, but now it seems to be working, isn't it? Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. So I prepared a small table where I tried to summarize few results that I found in the literature, where they look at the effect, the relationship between supervisor support, work stress level, job control, job insecurity, job strain, and life stress level. So, and I tried to summarize, I hope I did it right, but I mean, looking at more or less, I mean, and of course it's not, it's a synthesis, so there are some nuances that are lost in this table, but this is the you say the main points. Those are the main points. So when you have high job control, women are less stressed and men are more stressed. When you have low job control, doesn't have any protective effect on the life stress for women, and it does have protective effect on life stress. Job high strain, direct effect, adverse effect on life stress for women, but not for men. High job insecurity is less associated with higher life stress for women, but it is for men. And the relationship, the general relationship between work stress and life stress is basically the same for women and men. I guess what happened is that when you unpack what it means, stress, stressful job, or being stressed because of job, then within this concept, you find different things like, the what is it that stresses you or doesn't stress you in a situation, in a professional situation. Those are the variables that this research has been investigated. So support, supervisor support, work stress level, job control, job insecurity, job strain, and so on and so forth. And when you unpack it, this big variable and this big dimension, then you see that the effects are different for women and for men. And one thing that is behind or can be considered a conclusion is that, in emotional intelligence, it's not something that women have more than men. Because, for example, one thing that makes a difference is the concept of resilience. And it seems that under this point of view, in job context, men are more resilient than women in a certain situation, in certain context. So this makes more or less, in a certain way, makes more even the situation between women and men. So there are different variables, different factors that concur in defining what these jobs stress related. And emotional intelligence can help, but is not something that that men don't have it. This is the point that I want to make it. They just use it in a different, impacts men and women in different ways.
Okay, I just wanted to ask Beatrice, what do you mean no protective effect on life stress? What does the protective part mean?
That it doesn't, the stress effect that you have in the professional situation does not, goes also, doesn't invade also the private life. That it stays confined within the stress, within the work situation.
Okay, understood. I think having that is very helpful, but how do we identify, I think going back to the first question, how do we identify when stress is something that motivates us and when it's something that holds us back and leads us negatively to negative emotions and a negative type of lifestyle? Rita, I know you had a presentation where people can identify these things, small, I think, interactive kind of worksheets where people can identify how to manage their stress and identify it. Would you like to go through that a bit?
Sure. So the fundamental way, and there's no one answer for this question. So how do I know when, something is too much? As I'm sure we're all aware, people react differently to stress. Some people have a very high tolerance. Some people, a small amount of stress will bother them. So there's no one answer like, yes, at this point, I'm worried. But there are ways you can keep track. So the first thing we need to keep track of, like Taiba was saying, is how our body and how we are emotionally to stress. So think of the time, you know, when you're the most relaxed and, you know, you're sitting, you know, you're happy, you're on holiday, wherever that is, and you're feeling good. And then think, okay, how does my body change when I'm stressed? So first we have to identify it. And so then we need to identify how often that is happening. And then you can decide, okay, this is too much. But we have to keep track. So one way to keep track, at least of thoughts and physical sensations, I'll quickly share my screen. There's something called a thought record. I can share this with whoever is interested. I could include this in the chat. So this is a very simple exercise. So you have a situation. So you might write down what happened. Then you might talk about your moods in this situation. So what were your emotions? How intense were the moods? I'm going to zoom in. So you have the moods, and here, what emotions did I feel? And then physical sensations. What did I notice in my body? What would others notice? Did you have any unhelpful thoughts? Did you have any negative thinking where you're like, oh no, like not again, and kind of negative things? And you might want to take a more balanced perspective. So you might say, oh God, this is never going to end. But what would be a more realistic interpretation, right? And then you might say, okay, what did I do in that moment? So you might say, well, you know, I ate 20 donuts. Probably, you know, did that work? Probably that wasn't a good idea. Versus, I did some deep breathing. That helped me. So this might be one way of doing things to kind of keep track and to see in different situations what you could do to help you. This may not work for everybody, this type of exercise, but building self-awareness is key. If we don't realize that we're stressed all the time, how can we improve our stress levels? If we think this is normal, then we won't know that there's things could be better. So start by identifying situations, individual situations, and work on those. And if you can improve that situation in that moment and you feel better, then it's becoming more manageable. If this is constant and no matter what you do it's not improving it, and you have a constant anxiety, then you might need more support. But that's an individual decision you kind of have to determine.
Okay. Is stress something I can build? Can I build stress levels? Can I build tolerance to stress if I'm a person who wants to grow? I do not wish to stay in a safe job which is comfortable. I want to take on more tasks, but I understand that it's stressful. Is this something we can build on? Either Beatrice or Rita, one of you.
I'll let Beatrice answer.
Yeah.
You are making very difficult questions. I mean, in the sense that it's hard to find unique answer. You can build it on. Yeah, sure. You can use this, as I said before, you can use, I mean, the stress level can be used in a positive way, can be turned into something positive, but it requires a lot of training, a lot of self-control, a lot of inner knowledge of yourself, of how you react in certain situation, and how are the consequences of your reactions. So along knowing yourself, you need to know also the context and the situation. So if you have a good understanding, a good knowledge of your own reaction, your own competencies as well, and you have a good knowledge of the context, then the stress can be something positive, can be used in a positive way. It can be used, for example, to set a new level, a new step for your own career, for your own satisfaction, for your own goals. So the stress is most of the time based on the lack of knowledge, on the lack of confidence in the situation as well. And it depends, and it's something that depends on how much time you spend on unpacking the stress, on trying to understand what is it exactly that makes you stressing, what are the elements that contribute on in making that situation, and how can you intervene, how can you control and manipulate those elements. So it's hard to answer. I hope I understood correctly your question. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
My point of view is other qualities could be enhanced. You can build your confidence. You can build your self-awareness, and as we mentioned before, your self-expression. All of these things there are things you can do to enhance it. It's not set in stone. Some things take more time to build, because before I can manage my stress, I should become aware, as Rita said, of what's stressing me, because probably something that I would do is stressful, but for Christiana, it's fun. That's a good stress, but for me, it's a bad stress. So as you said, it's something very individual. But I would like to move from it becoming a negative stress to a positive stress. I think, Rita, even with the worksheets you have handed out, exercise, you mentioned that exercise is a good thing to do when you're stressed, but for the body, exercise is another stressor. So this, I think it's the same with going to the gym. You start slow and then you build up. And I wanted to know your opinion, Rita. Is that also something I can do with work stress? Can I start with smaller tasks and responsibilities and then grow into bigger ones?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And with work, it's a great question. It's a complicated answer. So basically, when we are doing any sort of task, be it work or in your personal life, having a big thing can be overwhelming. And just thinking about it or looking at the task, oh my God, I have to redesign this entire thing. That's extremely overwhelming. That's going to cause a lot of stress. But as you were mentioning, Taiba, if we take one large task, break it down into smaller pieces, organize it, it's going to be much more manageable. So when it comes to these huge tasks, a lot of it comes down to breaking it down into pieces and working at one piece at a time, having good time management, because I think a lot of times, myself included, we fall into the trap of busy work. Oh, I'm going to answer all my emails. Oh, I'm going to have my WhatsApp. I'm going to do it. And it's like you're just wasting your time. So you feel busy. You're like, yeah, I did all this work. You didn't actually do anything necessarily of value, right? Some emails, of course, are important, but just kind of spending half your day on email, probably not the most important thing. So I'd say first off is to prioritize what is truly important. A lot of times the thing that's truly important, the thing that's really making us anxious, we will avoid. But that's the thing we should be tackling first, and we should be tackling head on. And that might mean
eat the frog first.
Yeah, exactly. So there's so many different things. I don't want to say all of them now, but basically break down a large task into smaller pieces. Don't get sucked into busy work. It's easy. And we might have to learn to say no sometimes, that we have this big project. I don't want to take on, when possible, of course, but I don't want to take on 20 other little minor things that are not important and are not the main thing. So if you really want to improve, as you're saying, Tyler, in the workplace and do something meaningful, they're not going to care that you're on your email 24 hours a day. It's do you get the work done?
Very interesting. So if I was today, well, I am in that position where there's this need or understanding that I need to practice self-care and not stress myself with so many tasks per day. But then you get the other side, which tells me if you're not doing something, if you're on the couch watching TV, you're being lazy. So it's a perception that I'm trying to shift from, no, this is time for myself. There you go. That internal conversation is stressful. So Beatrice, what can I do today for me to understand where, how to prioritize, as Rita said, and how to set those goals when I myself have a problem adhering to those rules of self-care, where you need to take that time off to take care of yourself and your mental health?
Well, especially for women, most of the time nowadays we are into very challenging situation. We are into situation, even if not openly said, in the situation where we feel that we have to show all the time how good we are. We have to show that we are as good as men and even better. And that we don't have weak points, that we don't have, there is this representation, idealistic representation of a superwoman that can do anything, and that, it's, well, this is a very narcissistic idea. And sometimes it's women themselves that they are feeding this perception, this idealistic perception. And we don't allow ourselves. I mean, I think that the most dangerous enemies are ourselves, because we are always, most of the time we are, the reason we are stressed is because we are expecting ourselves more from ourselves. Is sometimes it's not even others that are demanding, but it's, I feel that I have to do more.
Mhm.
I feel that I can do more, which might be true, but I don't have to. No, and sometimes it's just, managing the perception of themselves as somebody that can make mistake, that can have lazy times, that just not be in the mood, you say,
Yeah.
don't take the challenge, accepting them an image of yourself, which is not always, perfect, always best performance, always, a hero, sometimes just a normal person, and be happy as well, even if we are just a normal persons. So it's most of the time, the real stressful is more inner, within the inner dialogue that Rita was referring before. Of course, there are real stress, there are, I'm not saying that every time is like this. There are sometimes that we have a bossy person that we have to deal with, or, a crazy demands, or, then there are real situation. And then it's, of course, you don't need a psychologist there, but you need maybe a human resource management, or, a different type of situation to deal with this concrete situation. But I would suspect that most of the time, the feeling of being stressed is more caused by our own perception and a sort of narcissistic scarf that we don't want to deal with. Maybe I'm too psychologist. I don't know, Rita, what do you think?
Well, I agree, because the thing is, look, when we're on an airplane, one day when we will all go on airplanes more often, when we're on an airplane,
When we were,
yeah, when we used to go on airplanes, they always had the, if the cabin pressure is too low, the oxygen masks go down. And what do they say? Do they say, hey, moms and dads, put the oxygen mask on everyone around you, then put it on yourself? No, they don't say. They say, put the oxygen mask on yourself, then put it
First.
on your children. Now, imagine you have a 2-3-year-old child. Your instinct is save the child. But they said, no, save yourself first. Because if you run out of air, it doesn't matter if the kid has the oxygen mask on, you're gone. And so use that idea. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first. Take care of yourself first, then help others. Which means when I teach this to my students, I'm always like, I know this is the answer to everything, but the answer to everything is get enough sleep, eat healthy, exercise, cut down on smoking or quit. So we have to have those fundamental basic things, spend time with your family and friends, have homework boundaries, which is difficult now in COVID and working from home, but as much as possible to set boundaries. Because if we don't have those basic things, it's going to be difficult, right? You can sit and do deep breathing and mindfulness and meditation, but if you're going on 5 hours of sleep every night, it's not going to be helpful. So we really do need to take care of ourselves first. So like what Taiba's saying, that instinct, oh, I'm on the couch, I'm lazy. You're not being lazy. You're putting the oxygen mask on yourself first. You're taking care of yourself first, and you're going to have that break, then that energy to take care of your family, your children, your husband, your whatever, your workplace. It's really, really important to do those things. And if I was to add one more thing, don't multitask. Put your phone away. It's not going to help you. Now, let me tell you why. Now, it's only here next to me because I'm charging it. So that's my excuse, but it's off, right? So why is it bad to have our phone next to us all the time? Because what are we doing? We're constantly shifting our attention from the task at hand to the phone. I should really be doing, but I'm on my phone. So we're going back and forth. research has found that actually adds to our stress. We feel more stress when we're constantly switching between our phone and a task at hand. We're slower overall, and we make more mistakes. So while we think, oh, I'm being so productive, I'm working, and someone answered the WhatsApp, you were actually being less productive. It's a myth. So do one thing at a time. You're actually going to feel less stressed. You're going to focus more, and you're going to be more productive. And that's in life. When you're watching Netflix, don't be on your phone. You're going to miss the movie. It's not going to be good for you. So please, the phone, I love the phone, but it's not helping our stress levels.
I like that you mentioned the phone and technology, and in every webinar, I find it very relatable to talk about electronics, social media, and again, going back to setting the expectations for ourselves based on the comparison we make. And some people like to call it, I go on Instagram to get inspired, but we all know underlying that there is comparison going on. Beatrice, how is that adding more to our stress?
Oh, well, it is adding. I think it is adding some stress. Yeah, because, you know, you are exposed to multiple sources of information and stimuli, and sometimes they interfere to each other. Sometimes they improve each other, but sometimes they impair, and, you know, they jeopardize the whole process of being okay, feeling good. And it's somehow is unavoidable, I think, in the type of society we live in, where we do have no, it feels like something that it's necessary not to have different source of information sometimes at the same time. It's like the distinctive trait of the contemporaneity, you know, being a person of the moment, of the contemporary society. But of course, it's a source of information, especially when they are demanding, you know, when the information that they require you to do something. You know, so if there are stimulus that are, you know, just passive, they make you passive, then it's different. I think it's more handleable, it's more reasonable. But when those, like, you know, answering to the phone or to a message, or just, you know, checking what is happening on the social network or this kind of thing, but especially when they are job related, you know, did you do this? Did you take care of this situation? Or, you know, those kind of thing. And what is happening now with this new impulse to smart working, you know, because of the sanitary situation, because of the pandemic situation, there is more openness and more positive attitude toward smart working. What is happening is the time dedicated to professional life and personal life, the boundaries between these two different spaces are eroded. And so there are you know, they tend to interfere to each other. It's not, you know, entering the building where you work and getting out the building. Yeah. It's also marking a temporal space between, you know, work and life. Not always, not for all the jobs, like academic jobs is a little bit different. It doesn't work very well. So you work a lot at home, but, you know, for most of the professional activity. And now when this is not happening anymore, when you don't have the badge not to mark the start of your professional day and the end of your work day, it's, you know, it's a symbolic act that, but also marks, you know, a specific, also psychological space and time. With the smart working, you know, smart working has many positive sides, but also has, I think, the main negative aspect is this one, that, you know, is a flattering, is it's changing these boundaries. Those boundaries are no longer so strong. I don't know if you might be interested. I would like to share with you some results that I in a research that I conducted during the COVID situation, where we interviewed teachers in smart working, you know, in distance education, doing distance education. And we found, and one of the question was exactly this one: how do you handle, this problem? The distinction. How do you mark your professional life and your personal life? Some teacher didn't do it. There was a total invasion. When they were teaching, their kids, not their student, their kids were also with them, sharing, the conversation with the student. The teacher showed the house to the student, introduced the parents, the rest of the family. So there was is this stressful? Hard to say. It was a way to manage this difficulty to keep the distinction. Some teachers were very careful, on, preparing a corner which was, just devoted for the professional time. When I have to work with kids or with their parents, then I go in my corner and it's completely separate from the rest of the house. Some teacher had this type of solution. Other teacher, they sort of give up. So since this is anyhow going to be mixed and I won't be able to keep separated, instead of stressing me out because my kids are crying or asking me candy or whatever, I just, grab the kids and say, see, this is what I'm doing. I'm talking to other kids. Of course, depends on the age, but some teachers use this strategy. So it's really, I was really amused by these results. I thought it was very interesting, that some teacher had this sort of intuition that, instead of going, trying to find a solution and to keep separate the two moments, they kind of mix it. And it was, it was a relief for them. It was less stressful. They gave up on this distinction. And it was good also for the, one of the things that they said in this interview, that it was good also for the parents of the students. They see the teacher under different light. And so they sometimes, something that I just learned, I mean, it's a research that was just concluded a few months ago. They learn to look at the teacher also as a person and not only as a professional. And this helped also in improving the quality of the relationship between the teacher and the parents. I don't know if this helps in the in the discussion.
Yes.
But I thought it was a very interesting results, and I wanted to share with you and see what you think.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yeah. I have a question, Taiba, may be related to what Beatrice just said. I mean, if I understood you correctly, both of you, when we talk about stress, we first need to be aware of the stress, of the fact that we are stressed. So we need to know us very well, to know our reaction, to know our emotion, etc. Is there any case, which is worried me, if I think, where there is an hidden stress? I mean, where we don't realize that we are actually under stress, and then we have later on a bigger effects, side effects. So where we don't really realize that we are under stress, that we don't, maybe because maybe there are situations, like for example, in this horrible and awful COVID time, and then as you said, okay, teachers, then they started to not put a limit between the private life and working time, but how do, maybe that, of course, that was the only solution, but in the end, maybe have caused, this has maybe caused more stress and then pay the effects and the negative effects after. So my question is, is there any case of where you don't basically realize that you are under stress, and then there is this hidden stress?
Yeah, I think there is cases like that, and I think this is the worst case.
Yeah.
I don't know, Rita, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's about self-awareness. If you have lower self-awareness than average or lower than the people around you, you won't notice that you're stressed. You won't notice that you're upset. It's this kind of the stereotypical example of, someone is yelling and you're like, why are you angry? And as they are yelling, they say, I'm not angry. And it's like, clearly you are angry, like you're yelling. That person is probably in that moment is just not aware of what's going on. So yes, I completely agree. You could, if you're lacking as much self-awareness or emotional awareness. And I don't say that negatively. People have different levels of self-awareness and emotional awareness. Some people have a lot, some people don't have as much. And if you have a lower level, then yeah, you may not notice, and you may think that the situation is normal. And so that's why we want to increase our self-awareness. We want to increase our realization, take steps, go, okay, take a moment, pause. What's my body doing right now? And you notice, oh, my hands are in fists, or oh, I just noticed my stomach is in knots. Something's wrong. Or my back, I have all this tension in my neck and my back. So when we take those moments to pause and we realize, then we can go, I must be stressed right now. Okay, what can I do now? Right? Maybe I need to take a break. Maybe I need to go for a walk outside. Difficult in Kuwait right now to go for a walk, but let's say when the weather is better, right? You go outside. Being in nature is very helpful. Maybe I need to take a break. And as Beatrice was saying, these work-life boundaries have become very blurred, and it could have negative effects for those teachers later, but at least, when things go back to, the way they were hopefully like before the pandemic, it is important to keep those boundaries. It's important, so for example, a simple example, I teach and I write in my syllabus, I tell students, look, I answer emails between this time and this time. So they know if they send me an email at 8 at night, I'm probably not going to answer them. So they're not upset about it. They're not worried. They know this ahead of time. And I know I don't need to feel stressed out about it. The student is worried and is frantically emailing me. It's like, well, I told them at the beginning of the semester, I'm not going to respond at 8 p.m. And I haven't had complaints about that because it's clear. So when you set clear boundaries that are reasonable, of course, then people will follow. But this desire, like when I was first starting out, many years ago, I was like, oh, I have to reply. It's like 2 a.m. No, you don't have to reply at 2 a.m. Why are you doing that, right? So it's about setting clear boundaries and taking time for your own, mental health and self-care.
So if you don't realize you are stressed, maybe other people around you would do it. So
exactly,
take in consideration the feedback that you have from others. When they say, "Listen, you are stressed," it might be true.
No, but this is actually an important point, the reaction towards people and how our stress will affect the people around us. I guess this is also an important point.
Yeah, I guess setting the boundaries is also to manage other people's expectations of you. I think what could go undetected is when it's not a very healthy relationship you have with those closest to you. And that could be causing you that stress. I think it's very important to know how to, you cannot change that person if it's a parent or a brother, sister, or even a husband. How does self-care look like when this stressor is there? I cannot do anything about it, it's there. So how do I manage it then?
That's a tough question. Look, traditionally, when we talk about stress management, we usually ask people, hey, write at least 3 things that are stressing you out right now. People would write different things. And then after that, we would say, divide them into 2 lists, things you can control, things you cannot control. And we would say, look, work on the things you can control, the things you can't control. There's not too much you can do about it. Try not to focus on it right now, right? Which is easier said than done. You can't just say, well, this person's never going to change. I can't control them. But sometimes letting go, understanding, look, I can never change X. They will always do these things that will irritate me. I don't like it. I've tried this. It doesn't work. And just say, it's not going to work. I, remove the responsibility from myself. Now, that's assuming this is a generally okay relationship. We're not talking about, physical, mental, emotional abuse. We're not talking about severe, divorce the person. Of course, we're not those go without saying, leave that person, get therapy, get help. But we're just talking about someone who irritates you and it's a little thing and you keep telling them and just let go or spend less time with that person. I know maybe not with the, a husband but if you have like a cousin, don't see that cousin as often, just see them less. Don't bother or just accept they're that way. Sometimes letting go can help you a lot, accepting you can't control it.
Rita, I have a question for you. Usually you said you ask people to list what is under control and what is not. Mm-hmm. Which list is longer usually?
Usually not. When I've done this, it's what's not in control. If not, the entire list was not in their control. Sometimes. But sometimes you need that reminder, because if someone is upset about, let's say, something at work and a new policy, and maybe they're right, maybe the policy isn't a nice policy, or maybe, you know, whatever have it be, it's like, okay, but can you control that right now? And I'm like, maybe later you could work on it, and some policies change. And of course, we've seen these things happen. I'm like, right at this second, right now, in this moment, can you control it? They're like, no. Okay, what can you do? You could sit and worry about it and stress you out more, or you could try to do something else. Again, easier said than done. I'm not, you know, I'm not like perfect. Oh, every time something's not under my control, I have this perfect reaction. But yeah, a lot of times it's not under control, but sometimes realizing that is a big help. The self-awareness, understanding, this isn't within my control. There's not, you know, I've tried all, it doesn't work. Okay, now what?
Yeah. I mean, a certain level of stress is no, I started with this claim. A certain level of stress can be okay. You know, it's not necessarily a negative thing. I mean, we deal every day with some stress, so it's a part of our life. It's something that we have to accept, to have a certain level of stress. The problem is that when you don't manage that level anymore, so either you lower the stress or you look for more resource to cope with the stress. So either way.
Yes, and I think it's important to know when to reach out for that resource, and it could be a coach, or if you're having more trouble with it, it could be to reach out to a psychologist or a psychiatrist in those situations.
Ask for help. It can be friends, can be family, can be workplace itself. You know, the most successful resources are resources that are found within the professional context that is supposed to be stressful. Now, people don't realize that even in the most stressful professional context, you might find some resource to lower the stress. Colleagues, other people that work there that you didn't take in consideration in advance for any reason, because maybe they are in another department, or maybe they just don't cross in the corridor. You know, it can be, sometimes it can be very surprising, you know, the same workplace that you find that you consider stressful can deserve some surprise. It can have some resource to make you feel better. And so surely asking for a resource and for help, talking to other people, and sharing the feeling, it helps understanding yourself, but also mobilized resource from the external.
Yeah, and I think even the simplest kind of help can be from those resources, which is, as you said, Rita, even if I put things that are out of my control, are mostly my problems, someone else could give me a fresh perspective that shows me that, no, I do have control over it. I just did not know how to, could be one of the things. And then something as simple as, when you talk about it, getting it out of your head and out there, just takes away from its power over you. And that's why if you feel like you are in need of a resource, a support system to help you, you should always reach out if it's not available within your circle.
Yeah, definitely. I see a question in the chat. Can stress be generated from a wrong relationship? Yeah, sometimes.
Of course.
Some relationships are causing us stress, and then we have to evaluate. Is there something that can be done to improve? Can we speak to that person? And can the relationship be improved, or is it not going to work? But yes. Yeah, maybe it can improve. Maybe we need to cut the person out. It depends, you know, that's something you need to evaluate. But can stress be generated? Yeah. Even from good relationships, you can be stressed. Something that's overall a healthy relationship, you love each other, you can still have stress. You can still be worried about them. There could still be a problem. Absolutely. So good relationships can cause stress, bad relationships, definitely.
Another interesting results that I thinking again of the question, women versus men, from this research from teachers, is that we found a very dramatic differences between women with family and single women. It seems obvious, seems trivial, but it tells also of course, it tells that, you know, women with a family are more stressed because it's, of course, you know, they have more commitments. But it tells also that within the family, most probably, let's say the stress is not divided, it's not well divided, because it doesn't affect in the same way. There is not a systematic differences in this term between men. I mean, men, the stress the men can perceive, can feel, it doesn't depend on the fact that they have family or not. I mean, not so dramatically. So it means that within the family, there is still some difficulties. I don't know if this is typical of the Italian situation. I don't know how it's in Kuwait, but I guess, I suspect that this might be more or less, I mean, it might not so much differences. That the, you know, the stress, let's say the family stress is not equally distributed. So even within the family, one thing that it should be done is trying to find strategies to, you know, disseminate your stress within the other member of the family. So how do you say? Yeah, put some stress on them instead of, you know, taking all the stress yourself. Of course, I'm telling this in a more, you know, like a funny way, but trying to be not too
yes, not to be too serious,
not too stressful. But
thank you so much, Rita and Beatrice. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I enjoyed this conversation, and this will be on YouTube after this. So if anyone wants to rewatch it, there's a lot of very interesting information. Our next webinar will be about decision making, which will help once you identify your stressors, how you can make better decisions in your life. Both Beatrice and Rita have been tagged on our social media, so if you want to follow them and continue to see their work, ask them questions, reach out to them, you can find their information there. Thank you again, ladies, for being here, and thank you, Christiana, for giving you and Lakom this opportunity to bring these webinars.
I think there is also some men, so thank you also.
Thank you.
I would thank them also. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for hosting this webinar.
Thank you so much.
I hope we
take care, everyone.
Yeah, I hope we get some interesting